Hi, I'm Michael Nadalin from Market Lead, and today's video is about an insight I had recently on an account that I audited. So this account I've actually audited was a client of mine that I only worked with for 2 weeks. Now, the reason I only worked with them for 2 weeks is by the time I signed them, by the time of the end of that 2 weeks, the client actually sold part of their business and then they actually had to stop all their marketing efforts. But recently, the client's come back, and what I've had a look in the account is something that I've noticed that's a big issue with a lot of performance match for e-commerce clients that no one really talks about. So I worked with this account for 2 weeks, then they went on pause, they paused for a month, then the other investor in the business actually went to another agency. Now, this other agency is a well-known agency, and what they did is they built out heaps of asset groups, actually 95 asset groups within one Performance Max campaign. Now, whilst that does sound good and it might look good, the results were significantly worse. Firstly, the revenue was less. Secondly, the return on ad spend that I'd achieved, when I took on the account, it was achieving about 450 to 500% return on ad spend. That month, I was able to get it to 700%. Now, it's not because I'm so good, it's because I've implemented the strategies that I always recommend. And that revenue and that return on ad spend actually grew. So it went from about 50K to 80K in 1 month, and that's the month it sustained at, and it went from about 500% or 450% return on ad spend to 700%. So return on ad spend growth and revenue growth, which are two very important things. A lot of the times when you get ROAS growth, your revenue can kind of drop just because you're not really, they seem to be a lot of the times at different ends of the spectrum. Now, what I noticed with this account that when I've been auditing it recently, because I'm going to be taking it on again, is that every month the return on ad spend went down. So the month I worked on it was 700%. The month after, when nothing was done, it was still at 650 to 700%. And then the first month this agency worked on it and I could see all the changes in it. It went down to about 600%, 500%, 2 months ago 450, and then this month 440. So continual decline. Whilst the revenue is about the same, the cost is significantly higher. Now, the issue with this is this client doesn't make margin on the product, or this client doesn't make much margin on the product. So margin and return on ad spend is probably the most important thing. The volume doesn't matter, because if you just get a lot of revenue and a lot of sales, but you're not profitable, you're not profitable. And the client didn't care about that. Plus the expenses on the management was really high. So this video is really about, don't get locked into or fooled about the idea of more segmentation will help you out. I'm seeing it firsthand of what an asset group that only had 2 or 3 asset groups when I was running it, 700% ROAS, 80K revenue has gone, and when it changed over to another agency, it's gone even higher, 95 asset groups down to 440% return on ad spend. The reason why I suspect this happens, and I was speaking to the client about, is when you do segment out things too much, you're trying to milk things too thinly. And the issue is you're trying to humanize or have control over an automation machine that requires less human interaction than you need. So the most important thing is strategy over manual input. Now, what I've noticed here is by doing more segmentation, it seems like this agency was trying to go oh, these things are going really well, we can turn this on and off. But firstly, the more you create, the more you have to manage. The more you have to manage, the less likely you are to manage it. When you're less likely to manage it, you're not going to get the results. So it sounds good on the front end when you're going up and doing all the good work. But when it comes to the optimization, when things aren't working, that's when the work really doesn't get done. Now, you know what time it is. I'll keep this short. Like, comment, and subscribe to keep up to date with the latest and greatest Google Ads and paid ad news. And lastly, it's your time to be number one. So Market Lead is now taking on new clients. So if you're serious about increasing sales, increasing customers, and more importantly, scaling your business, book in a strategy session with someone in my team and you'll get a free action plan. Just go to marketlead.com.au, go to the strategy session link, and then book it in there. So remember, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll keep this short. Enjoy. When it does work, it's all good because it looks like, oh, we did all these things that work. But when it doesn't work, it is so much harder to manage. So if you are wanting to do super segmentation and split things out by categories and different ads and audiences and signals, you've got to really take on the responsibility of managing it. If you're not willing to manage it, don't do it. You can get really, really, really good results with 3 or 4 asset groups. I've been recommending 1 in the past, then 2, and in my last video, I've recommended 3. But that's all I ever start off with. And most of the times, most of my clients just stick with that because 1, their budgets only allow a certain amount. They're given a monthly or a yearly fixed budget. Secondly, stock capacity. Thirdly, more and better data is acquired because you're only like concentrating data into 3 or 4 areas of segmentation where you can really focus that data and more automation can be done. Machine learning focuses on big data, but when you're splitting things out, big data turns to medium data and goes to small data. So if you think about segmenting things out too much, just think about this first. More you create, the more you have to manage, the less like you have to manage. And when it doesn't work, what are you going to do? You're going to come back to the fundamentals. So start off with the fundamentals, get it to really work, achieve your results there. And then once you do, start looking into the data further and then segment out. Don't start with super segmentation. It's like back in the day with SKAGs or single keyword ad groups or single product ad groups as well. People would say they would get better results, but they never did. I did it for years because I was working in an agency that almost forced me to do it, and I never got the best results from it. So Google and data likes data to be like concentrated in an area, not segmented out, because machine learning and AI and all these things that require big data still require big data. We need to assume that we're not smarter than the machines, but we've got to give it the best input and the best opportunity for success. So I'll end this video here. It's a bit of a rant. I hope you've enjoyed. If you've got any questions, let me know. But remember, like, comment, subscribe. Enjoy.